Maverick News. The world is watching. In a universe full of ideas, we draw lightness from the dark to a place where opposites attract. Right meets left, positive touches negative, sparking an explosion of truth. Because politics makes strange bedfellows.
Hey, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Strange Bedfellows. I'm your messy-haired host, Lori Spencer, along with Rick Walker of Maverick News. How are you tonight, Rick? Great to see you.
Good to see you, too. I'm just fine, thanks. And I think we're firing on all the channels. I was just late kind of coming in here at the very end.
I knew you would.
Because, I was on the other show. And I was getting everything kind of taken care of there. But yeah, we're rocking and rolling over here. So
amazing the wizardry that you pull off, how you do that. You'll do Maverick News and come screeching in at like 8:59 and 58 seconds. He's like, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Yeah, well, that way we carry the audience over, right, from the one show to the other. So
very smart. Very smart. And thanks, Mavericks, for joining us after Maverick News. We appreciate you. We love our Canadian viewers. Hello, America. I know that, tonight's topic is going to be of interest to Canadians as well, because obviously whoever our next president's going to be is going to be affecting Canada, to say the least. And I'm sure Justin Trudeau is watching tonight on the edge of his seat, right? On the edge of his seat.
Yeah, he just wants to know what we're going to say about him, because we talk about him a lot over here.
Exactly. That's why he watches every night.
That's right.
I think his half-brother Kyle Kemper watches from time to time, too. I actually sent Kyle a StreamYard link if he wants to join us backstage tonight. He's down in Austin, Texas, traveling with RFKjr. And I don't know how busy he is or if he can make it, but just in case, we might hear from Kyle a little bit later. But our main guest tonight is someone I'm very excited to introduce you to. I've gotten to know him through the Kennedy campaign and was on his podcast last week. His name is Billy Dees. He's been doing audio, video production, and media for a long time. I don't want to say exactly how long because I might age him before his time. So I think you're going to love him. I know Rick will. And let's bring him in. Good evening, Billy. How are you?
I am absolutely fantastic. Great to be here, Rick. Very nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Hello to all your fine people out there. This is wonderful. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. It's been a hell of a week, man. I'm telling you. I haven't jumped off a bridge yet. But
well, that's good.
Yeah, that is good. I like living. But I have to be honest with you guys. After this week made me want to start drinking again.
Yeah.
And I've been sober for 37 years.
Ooh.
That's how crazy this week has been.
Keep it going.
Man. So we're going to dive into it tonight. As you guys well know, I'm a volunteer on the Kennedy 24 presidential campaign, and things have been pretty chaotic around the potential vice presidential running mate that Kennedy's going to name. On the 26th of this month, he'll be in Oakland, California to make that announcement. I think it's at 2 p.m. Eastern time if you want to tune in. I'm sure there will be a live stream. But we're going to talk about why he chose Oakland and get into some of the media speculation, because the mainstream media has been in a feeding frenzy all week about this. Who's it going to be? And apparently there was a short list, an alleged short list, that was leaked to the New York Times, I guess by somebody in the campaign. I don't know. It's all speculation, but the media seized on that list, particularly the name Aaron Rodgers. And they really went wild with that one. And then just last night, Bobby Kennedy was down in Austin, my old stomping grounds, my hometown. And he put all those rumors to rest. And, well, I will just show you what Kennedy had to say. We'll get it straight from the horse's mouth. I had a friend who was there last night, actually. And, well, here's what Bobby says about it.
I'm going to name a vice president on the 26th in Oakland. We have an extraordinary person. I can't tell you who it is. But it's really, it's somebody, it's not any of the people they've been talking about. It's somebody that is going to surprise people, and I think that the country is really going to fall in love with it.
How's that for a tease?
Yeah.
Well, the suspense is killing me.
It's killing me too. And of course, everyone's back channeling me and asking me all week, Lori, come on, tell us who it's going to be.
And are you going to tell us who it is? Come on, spill the beans.
I don't know shit, and I ain't saying shit.
Oh.
I mean, they'll kill me. If I knew, would I tell you? Come on. I love the suspense as much as everybody. This is fun. It's chaotic,
exactly
it's hectic, it's stressful, but it's fun. What do you guys think of the show?
Do you know, and you're just not telling us, or like, do you not know? And would I believe you either way?
You wouldn't believe me, Rick. You wouldn't believe me. See, he's using our friendship against me now. He wants, come on, you can tell me. I'm your best buddy here at Maverick News. Can't you tell me?
There's nobody listening, nobody watching. You can just whisper it. Just whisper it.
Mm-hmm.
How about initials? Initials. Sounds like.
Well, I do have a hint in the private chat, Rick. A potential hint. If you look in the private chat, I dropped a video for you. Do you see that? There are, a lot of people are asking, why Oakland?
Yeah.
Of all the, it's a big country. Why Oakland? Kennedy lives in L.A. Why not L.A.? Why Oakland? And I thought, well, it's Kamala Harris's hometown. So that in itself is kind of a thumb in the eye to the vice president right now. But let's see here. Whose name has been bandied about more than anybody else as a potential Veep? And who does everybody want? I can tell you for a year now, everyone's been begging for one person to join him on the ticket who seems like an obvious fit. And who destroyed Kamala Harris in a certain debate back in 2020? Rick, could you cue up that video just to refresh everyone's memory?
I do not see it in my private chat. It's not.
Oh no, is it gone?
No, I'm banned for life on Facebook. Government hates me, so they're probably censoring me on the private chat too.
In the StreamYard chat?
It's the CIA for sure.
You got to be kidding me.
I don't
know. I can try to play it from my side and see if it works.
Yeah.
My internet sometimes is a bit sketchy.
Is that in the window down there? Is that the one you want to play at the bottom? Or is it a link that you sent me?
Yeah, in the private chat there. Do you see it?
Nope, don't have it. Sorry.
I have one here.
You don't have it in the StreamYard chat, huh?
Nope, not on my end.
Can you play it on your side, Billy? Do you see it?
Yeah, we'll see it. We'll find out.
I love it. Billy's such a pro. He's like, I got you, fam.
It's taking me out of the out of StreamYard though. I'm not exactly sure how I can play it in StreamYard on this particular screen. I'm usually not in the visitor screen, so I'm not exactly sure how to get it in.
You should be able to do it from your end, Lori, because you're right in the studio.
Yeah, I don't have the studio controls.
Yeah, you should be able to do it.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let me see what I can do here. I'll have to work the magic on my side. Please stand by.
Technical difficulty.
Sometimes my internet's a bit wonky, so hopefully this will play. But I think everyone knows who I'm talking about. Just wanted to refresh your memory. It's been almost 4 years since
Told ya! I told ya!
As the, quote, personification of the rot that has sickened the Democratic Party. What is the rot you see in the Democratic Party?
That our Democratic Party, unfortunately, is not the party that is of, by, and for the people. It is a party that has been and continues to be influenced by the foreign policy establishment in Washington, represented by Hillary Clinton and others' foreign policy, by the military-industrial complex and other greedy corporate interests. I'm running for president to be the Democratic nominee that rebuilds our Democratic Party, takes it out of their hands, and truly puts it in the hands of the people of this country, a party that actually hears the voices of Americans who are struggling all across this country, and puts it in the hands of veterans and fellow Americans who are calling for an end to this ongoing Bush, Clinton, Trump foreign policy doctrine of regime change wars, overthrowing dictators in other countries, needlessly sending my brothers and sisters in uniform into harm's way to fight in wars that actually undermine our national security and have cost us thousands of American lives. These are wars that have cost us as American taxpayers trillions of dollars since 9/11 alone, dollars that have come out of our pockets, out of our hospitals, out of our schools, out of our infrastructure needs. As president, I will end this foreign policy, end these regime change wars, work to end this new Cold War and arms race, and instead invest our hard-earned taxpayer dollars actually into serving the needs of the American people.
Thank you,
right here at
Congresswoman.
home.
Senator Harris, any response?
Oh, sure.
Who, me?
I think that it's unfortunate that we have someone on the stage who is attempting to be the Democratic nominee for President of the United States, who during the Obama administration spent 4 years full-time on Fox News criticizing President Obama.
That's
who
ridiculous,
has spent full-time,
That's
who has spent
ridiculous.
full-time criticizing people on this stage as affiliated with the Democratic Party. When Donald Trump was elected, not even sworn in, buddied up to Steve Bannon to get a meeting with Donald Trump in the Trump Tower, fails to call a war criminal by what he is as a war criminal, and then spends full time during the course of this campaign, again, criticizing the Democratic Party. What we need on the stage in November is someone who has the ability to win. And by that, we need someone on that stage who has the ability to go toe-to-toe with Donald Trump, and someone who has the ability to rebuild the Obama coalition and bring the party and the nation together. I believe I am that candidate.
Thank you, Senator. Congresswoman.
That girl was me.
What Senator Harris is doing is unfortunately continuing to traffic in lies and smears and innuendos because she cannot challenge the substance of the argument that I'm making, the leadership and the change that I'm seeking to bring in our foreign policy, which only makes me guess that she will, as president, continue the status quo, continue the Bush, Clinton, Trump foreign policy of regime change wars, which is deeply destructive. This is personal to me because I served in Iraq. I left my seat in the state legislature in Hawaii, volunteered to deploy to Iraq, where I served in a medical unit where every single day I saw the terribly high human cost of war. I take very seriously the responsibility that the president has to serve as commander-in-chief, to lead our armed forces, and to make sure always, no, I'm not going to put party interests first. I will put the interests of the American people
Thank you, Congresswoman. I want to briefly give Senator Harris a final second to respond.
I believe that what our nation needs right now is a nominee who can speak to all people. I spent my entire career standing mostly in a courtroom speaking 5 words, Kamala Harris for the people. And it was about all the people, regardless of their race, regardless of their gender, regardless of where they live geographically, regardless of the party with which they're registered to vote or the language their grandmother speaks. We need someone on this debate stage in November who has the ability to unify the country and to win the election. And I believe, again, I am that candidate.
Ooh, definitely
Thank you for watching
not
this
you.
video from NBC4 New York.
Oh my God. I don't know about you guys, but I want a rematch.
Yeah.
Please let it be Tulsi. Please, God, let it be Tulsi. Please.
So So you're saying that this is not like official. You can't say
No,
for
God,
sure?
no. Absolutely, positively not. Get that thought right out of your head. I am not starting another rumor. I'm just saying it's Oakland. I'm just saying that everybody on this campaign from day one wants Tulsi. And I'm just saying that on episode 1 of this program, Strange Bedfellows, last May, our very first guests, Rick, you might remember, were the comedy duo of the Jackman brothers, Eric and Mike. And, of course, they've both been involved with our campaign. Eric Jackman he's been with us since day one, since before day one. He's in New Hampshire and also worked on Tulsi's campaign in 2020. So it just so happened that this week, my friend Eric Jackman sat down with Tulsi Gabbard and had a wide-ranging one-on-one interview, which is coming soon. It has not been posted yet. So I'm going to give a plug to Jackman Radio. Hope you'll go subscribe to Eric's channel. That interview is coming soon, and he definitely talked to her about this possibility. I don't know what was said, you guys. I'm just saying it'll be a real interesting interview when it drops. So be on the lookout for that. Just wanted to plant the seed. I'm just like Johnny Appleseed.
The only thing I would say is that here again, and this is all speculation, but it does seem like she has a certain amount of traffic associated with the Trump campaign. I mean, that's is what it is. So I don't know. I've had a lot of people tell me that the odds of getting Tulsi, as much as we would like that, is probably not going to happen. Now, that don't mean it can't. I would tell you, too, that a lot of this speculation about the vice president, no matter how good this person is, typically what a vice president announcement does is it gives the campaign a little bit of a bump if it's a good pick. Tulsi would certainly do that, I'm sure, for RFK. But it doesn't go much beyond that. I don't know that I remember a time when a vice presidential pick won an election. It just doesn't. Now, by the same token, there's an old saying about baseball that, you can't win this series in April, but you can lose it. And the vice presidential picks are very much like that. You can't necessarily win with the vice presidential pick, but you can lose the election. There's been a couple of them. Probably the most notable was Sarah Palin, but there's been a few others. I think that a good solid pick like Tulsi would certainly give it a bump, and I think it would give it some legitimacy going into giving the candidacy some legitimacy going into the fall. But that's probably about as much as you can ask for it. When people were talking about Aaron Rodgers, and I had some people really coming after me on Twitter, like when I said that a pick like Aaron Rodgers could ruin the campaign. It could. I had a lot of people coming after me about, they wouldn't do that. He's a man of courage and quarterbacks are smart and all this. No, it would have been devastating to this campaign. And from what I understand, he has been rolled out. Now, that's not, here again, if you're a football fan, you're a Green Bay fan, and you love Aaron Rodgers, that's fine.
Oh, he's with the Jets now.
Yeah,
New York
but
Jets.
his legacy is always going to be in Green Bay, unless he takes the Jets to the Super Bowl. But his legacy is always going to be with Green Bay, just like Brett Favre and others. But I think that would have been devastating. The punchlines would write themselves. You wouldn't even have to sit down and so it would have been devastating.
I don't think people found it funny. I mean, a lot of our donors were quite spooked by that choice, and they let Bobby hear it this week too.
Yeah, and and some of it might be unfair to Aaron Rodgers. A lot of people went after him, and he may or may not have asked for this. I don't know. And I hate to see a lot of grief thrown his way when maybe he really wasn't, decided that he was going to even jump in this ring if he had the opportunity. But I can tell you that as professional athletes go, even within the football community, he is not universally loved. I mean, he's just simply not, somebody like Roger Staubach or Walter Payton. He's not people who are universally loved. He's not that. And when you look at the legacy of some of these players, one of what you have to remember is the really good football players that are like I'm from Canton, Ohio, which is where the Professional Football Hall of Fame is. And I've seen over the years a lot of them come and go. I've rubbed shoulders with some of them. A lot of the local people here have, some with good experiences, some with bad. But for the most part, the ones that really leave a mark are people like Vince Lombardi, who had an ideal about the approach to the game and about commitment and sacrifice that you could apply to anything in your life. Somebody told me a story here not too long ago about Vince Lombardi that I really liked. And it's kind of like today when we ask who's the best basketball player. Is it LeBron or is it Michael Jordan? The question was about football. Somebody asked him, who do you think the greatest football player who ever lived was? And back in his time, he might have said, well, maybe Johnny Unitas or Jim Brown or one of those kind of people. And his answer was, the greatest football player who ever lived never touched a football because he never tried. Okay, that kind of an answer, that kind of an attitude, that's not Aaron Rodgers. Now, that's nothing against him, but he's
I know what you mean.
He is not that inspiring.
And he's known to have quite an ego.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I just and he's kind of got that smug mumbling out of the side smirk of his mouth all the time. I just don't know. That's not something that would have been good for the campaign. So I hope that is squashed, no matter who they pick. So anyway, that's my take on Aaron Rodgers. So I'm glad. I hope that's not. Yeah, I hope that's.
Well, I hadn't even asked you about Aaron Rodgers, but thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
We were talking about Tulsi Gabbard, and I have to ask Rick because Rick is a conservative, and much of our Maverick News audience is very pro-Trump. And there's been a lot of interesting signals, it seems, being sent from Team Trump. It looks to me, anyway, like they've been heavily courting Tulsi, whining and dining her. And she was at Mar-a-Lago last week. She was on Donald Trump Jr.'s podcast this week, just a couple of days ago. And I don't have a clip from that, sadly, but you can find it on Rumble. But Rick, I wanted to get your thoughts on Tulsi Gabbard, and obviously both teams want her. Team Kennedy wants her. Team Trump is sending signals. I don't know if he's sincere. My theory is Team Trump's trying to block Tulsi from coming over to Kennedy's ticket because Trump knows that that'll take votes from him. So I think it's all a big head fake myself. I think that Trump is kind of dangling that carrot in front of Tulsi, saying, come with me. But then at the Republican convention this summer, he will ultimately pick a Republican or pick somebody else. But what do you think, Rick? Do you think she'll go with Kennedy or Trump? What are your thoughts on all this?
I don't know where she'll go because you're faking me out with your double, super, quadruple head fake. And she's saying all what you just said. So I don't know, but I do know this. Wherever she ends up, she's an asset. If she goes with Trump, Trump's going to win the election. If she goes with Kennedy, he becomes a serious threat because that's a winning ticket.
Absolutely.
That's serious. Jesse Ventura, Aaron Rodgers, not so serious. Tulsi Gabbard, very serious. She's a serious candidate. She's credible. She has political experience. She has appeal across the political spectrum. She can pull from the Democrat side. She can pull from the conservative side, the MAGA side. She pulls from the female demographic. She's strong. She's smart. She has military experience. She's just got broad appeal. As I said before, Kennedy needs to broaden his voter appeal, not bring somebody in who's already within his little bubble, on issues like vaccines or even the environment. He needs to bring somebody in like Tulsi. She's perfect for him because she comes from the Democrats, but she appeals to conservatives. So that's the dream catch.
It seems like a match made in heaven to me.
It works for him, but it also works for Trump. Trump would be an idiot to not use her and put her on the ticket. He grabs her. He does the same thing. He broadens his appeal, increases his credibility. He
Takes votes from Kennedy.
Yep, he certainly does, and he takes votes from Biden because she's the more palatable Kamala Harris, right? Like, because she takes the female vote too. He wins. He wins with her. He can win with her. Kennedy could potentially become a serious threat or even win with her in the right conditions. He's still, in my view, a long shot because you have the big, party machines, right?
Yep.
So,
Oh,
but if
yeah.
something catastrophic happens, he could come up the middle and fill the void. You never know. Politics, things can change very quickly, but she's the one. I mean, and she's plus Hillary Clinton thinks she's a Russian agent, which is perfect because that will just drive her crazy.
And can you imagine the fear that it would strike into Kamala Harris's heart? Oh shit, I have to face her again on the debate stage. And I think Tulsi wants that. I think she wants another shot at Kamala Harris. What do you think, Billy?
Tulsi is, if you were designing a movie script, Tulsi Gabbard would be the perfect candidate for vice president. And actually, most people would like to see her at the top of the ticket in a lot of cases. She's that good. She is very smart. You two haven't mentioned it, but I'll say it. She looks good on camera. She's hot, and I'm not being coy. Those things shouldn't matter in this world, but they do. She's very attractive. She's very physically present. If you saw her doing the shooting and the running and all that on the target range, she looks like as about a capable of a human being that you are going to meet. And she's got the whole package. And if I was her, the one thing that would concern me about Trump is I would not want to get caught in another fiasco like Mike Pence did. And that would be something in the back of my mind. Yes, she could become vice president. Trump is of a certain age, and this would be his second term. So conceivably, if he won the election with her as vice president, she would be the obvious choice to be president. And that's a legitimate path. But there's also the possibility of a major fiasco in that administration. And I don't know that I would want to put myself in another January 6th type circus. The other thing that's the other thing here that's a wild variable that could impact both Trump and RFK is this. And I'm not saying this negatively. I'm not saying this mean-spirited. This is obvious. It is something that I don't know has been said. I'm sure the Democrats in their closed-door meetings have had this meeting and had this conversation. Joe Biden is one of the oldest presidents ever. I think he's the oldest. He would have to be. As a matter of fact, Reagan was criticized because he was at the time an old president. You got to keep in mind that Reagan left younger than Biden went in.
True.
So now here we are, another 4 years down from that. And if he would win the election and go to the following January, we'd be 5 years in with somebody who's in visible decline, rapid visible decline. I personally feel as a humanitarian that Joe Biden should be enjoying the twilight of his years. He should be on the back porch, sitting with a glass of tea, playing catch with the dog, whatever. I don't think that he should be under the pressure that he's under. And there's a very good possibility that Joe Biden could not necessarily survive long enough to get through the election. What's going to happen when that happens? What happens?
Wait a minute. Are you saying that the Democrats might be considering Tulsi too?
I think anything's on the table, and I'm not even sure how that would work.
Wow.
I'm not even
Didn't see that coming.
I'm not even sure how that would work.
Me neither.
I don't know how the legalities of that work, because Kamala would be the obvious second choice, but they don't want her. Her numbers.
Nobody wants Kamala.
So
literally less popular than Joe Biden.
And there's still the Michelle Obama rumors. I have to say that's unlikely, but and this year nothing's off the table. The one thing that I have nothing against Michelle Obama, actually, but I'll tell you, the one thing that I have reservations about is regurgitating the same people. We had a Bush legacy. We had a Clinton legacy. And I don't think we want an Obama legacy. It's time for a fresh face in there. Okay, and certainly Kennedy fits that. Tulsi fits that. But you know what? Depending on what happens with Joe Biden's health, either he has some sort of a problem where he's not incoherent and he clearly can't go on, or if some morning he just doesn't wake up, what happens? Are we looking at Gavin Newsom? I don't like him at all, but he's got the look. He's got movie star look.
He looks like a lost Kennedy brother. He does.
So I kind of, in the back of my mind, I'm really kind of wondering what the Democrats are conjuring up, because they got to know this is not sustainable for another 5 years. They've got to know.
You would think.
Yes.
You would think. But I just wanted to say, you were talking about how it's important to have a vice presidential running mate who brings people to the ticket that you don't already have.
Sure.
Right? Bobby Kennedy's obviously already got the anti-vax vote. He's already got a lot of the conspiracy theory vote. So that's one of many reasons why I felt like Aaron Rodgers, for example, was not the right choice. But also, to me anyway, the main thing that matters is experience, judgment, and temperament.
Yeah.
And I want, and we need, someone who's ready to lead immediately should the president be unable to fulfill his term. I mean,
yes.
Especially with a guy who's named Kennedy, there's always that possibility of assassination. Also, there's the possibility of illness or impeachment. Sure. I mean, Kennedy's going to have a lot of enemies in Congress if he makes it to the White House. You know that they're going to be looking for anything that they can to impeach this guy on, and they may give him the Trump treatment and try to impeach him several times in the course of his presidency. So it's important, vital to me, that whoever Bobby chooses, it has to be someone who is truly qualified and fit for the job. And I believe that Tulsi is the only one who checks all those boxes. You know, she's served in local government. She's served in the Congress. She's served in the military. She has great diplomatic skills and a network of contacts that she can tap. She's very well liked. I could easily see her as Secretary of State as well. She's a great diplomat. I think she'd be useful in anyone's administration and a great asset. But just for the record, for whatever my opinion's worth, which is probably nothing, that's why I don't get paid to give it away, Tulsi Gabbard is, and has always been, the obvious best choice for the campaign. And I don't know if we can get her, if we can talk her into it, or if Trump is making her a sweeter deal, a deal that she can't refuse. But my vote has always gone for Tulsi. She's my first choice. And my second choice, also because he had experience in the executive branch of government as both a mayor and the governor of Minnesota, was Jesse Ventura. And Billy, you were with me this week when I hosted a great debate on Twitter Spaces, X. We debated for 3 hours all of these various names on the vice presidential list. And if you guys missed it, you want to check it out, go to my Twitter. It's @RealLoriSpencer. It's pinned to the top of my Twitter, and you can take a listen to the replay. But, I advocated in that space very strongly for Jesse. I've known the guy. I know he's honest. He's experienced. He's trustworthy. He agrees with Bobby on most things, not everything. Hey, you can't have it all. Where would you put it? But yet Jesse did endorse Bobby. And I want to play for you a clip. This was, I guess, about a month or two ago in Tucson, Arizona, which is where Jesse resides now. He came out to Bobby's speech there in Tucson and gave a rousing endorsement. And all I could think of while I was watching this speech by Jesse was, please come on board, one way or the other. If not vice president, please play a role in our administration somehow. Take a listen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former governor of Minnesota and WWE Hall of Famer, Jesse "The Body" Ventura.
Hello, everybody. Wow. Please bear with me while I wait for the music to end. That's good. There we go. Please excuse me because I left office in 2003 and I have not worn a tie or suit since. So I'm out here now in Arizona, and I didn't bring a tie or a suit with me because I heard in Arizona you don't need it. You wear blue jeans and golf shirts and T-shirts. And so I fit in pretty good now as a Minnesotan who's now transplanted to Arizona. But anyway, I'm here in support of Robert F. Kennedy's bid for President of the United States. And I support this because I have been a person of the third party my entire political career and my entire adult lifetime. I go way back. I voted for John Anderson back in 1980, for those of you that are old enough to remember that. So I have been a third party person my entire life. I support the third party movement. Ralph Nader had it best when he called it the two-party dictatorship, because that's what it is. And you're seeing right now, the very reason we need to elect somebody other than Democrats or Republicans. And that reason is this. You're seeing it right now with this border bill where they put their party before the country. Bear that in mind. Democrats and Republicans always put their party first, then it's their money bag donors that give them the money. And let's see, we the people, we could end up about 4th or 5th on the list. But rest assured, it's their party first, not the country. And you're seeing that right now. They could pass this bill, but they're not doing it. Why? Because of party politics and an election coming this fall. So let everybody suffer while they put their parties first. Well, that's why we need to elect independents. I won the election in Minnesota. I took on the Democrats and Republicans. And I was talking with Bobby earlier, and I think I amazed him a little bit when I told him I only raised $300,000 to become the governor of Minnesota. I can tell you this. I made more money doing the job than what I spent to get it. There isn't an elected official in the last 100 years to a major office who can say that. I made more money doing the job than I did spent to get it. And that's what you're looking at today. You talk about wasteful spending. How about the wasteful spending on these political parties? And the money that just goes down, for lack of a better term, down the toilet with this fundraising and all that stuff. I don't need that. And Bobby doesn't need it either. Bobby will make it on ideas. That's what I ran on in Minnesota, ideas. And the people responded. The voter turnout rose and went sky high in Minnesota. Bobby can do the same thing nationally. He can, if all we need is for people to believe. And I'm your example. I beat the Democrats and Republicans at the same time. They can be beaten. They can be beaten. And how you beat them is with ideas. How you beat them is with people responding to those ideas. And how you beat them is by putting America first. The United States first, not yourself. This isn't about yourself, and this isn't about your political party. It's about our country. And right now, our country needs Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And all third-party candidates. I believe it was John Adams told us, warned us. He said, when political parties take over the government, say goodbye to the government that you know. Well, he warned us, and we're on the brink right now, because these two dysfunctional parties that are running this country, they've been doing it now for, 50 years or more, and with the same results. And they don't have you in mind. They got theirselves in mind. So we need to elect people who truly understand what public service is about. And when you talk, I'll say this to you, and I'll finish with this. Imagine the world we would live in today if the two Kennedys would have lived. There would have been no Vietnam. There would have been no Cold War. We'd be friends with Cuba. This world would be, you wouldn't recognize it today. And so I always say Jack Kennedy was the greatest president of all in my lifetime. And the reason I say that is because they let him serve the least amount. He didn't even get one term. That's why he's the best, because they wouldn't let him go past not even one term. Well, maybe it's time to elect another Kennedy. And so on that note, please let me introduce to you a friend of mine, and I'll go back the many 20 years ago when they came to me and Robert's son Connor had a dream. And I had a chance to fulfill his dream. And his dream was a simple one. He wanted to go scuba diving or diving with an authentic Navy frogman. Well, I provided the authentic Navy frogman, and Connor and I had a great day diving down in Cabo San Lucas at Land's End. I'll remember it my whole life, and I sure hope Connor does too. But on that note, let me introduce to you who I hope is the next President of the United States, Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
I think that comment that I just highlighted says it all for me. I would be overjoyed with either of those two picks right there. That's my hot list. That's my short list for whatever it's worth. I want to tell you guys, Rick already knows this story because we talked about it on the day that Bobby left the Democratic Party and declared his independence there in Philadelphia last October. But the first thing I said when Bobby concluded his speech was I picked up a copy of Jesse's book, Don't Start the Revolution Without Me, which was published in 2008. Great book. I recommend it. In that book, he tells the story of how Jesse was considering an independent run back in 2008. He was looking for a running mate. He wanted Kennedy. So they got together down in Cabo when he was living in Mexico and talked about it. Unfortunately, though, Bobby was not ready for a number of reasons. He wasn't ready to leave the Democratic Party, for one. And Jesse would never, ever run with a Democrat or a Republican. It's just nope. And Bobby also had small children at home, and he made a pledge to his family to stick around and be a dad and not run for any public office until his children were grown. So it just wasn't the right time. But in that book, and I'm not going to spoil the ending, the epilogue, folks, would blow your mind. It was like a glimpse of the future. It was fiction, but I thought it was very, very interesting. And it would be interesting if we could make it come true in 2024. Now, I know Rick thinks I'm nuts to even suggest Jesse Ventura, because Rick, he grew up in the 80s. He remembers Jesse's wrestling years and his years making movies in Hollywood. And he was like, Jesse Ventura? Come on, give me a break. Do you still think I'm crazy, Rick? Yep. Well, Bobby probably does too. But I still say, if you can't get Tulsi, if she's not available, Jesse's your man. I'm telling you. I think he's the best guy for the job. What do you think, Billy?
When I say when I was a disc jockey and people would ask me about whether I like a song or not, it wasn't whether I personally had a connection with it or not. It's how was the audience that we served going to react to it. And I kind of like, me personally, I like Jesse Ventura. I think he has a certain swag that I personally can identify with. With that being said, I don't feel he's good for the ticket. He has a certain bravado that is going to rub a lot of people the wrong way. This, well, let me tell you how it is, Lori. I'm going to tell you how it is right now. That whole...
That's right.
I just, you have, Bobby is a very young 70. I wish I looked like him physically. I don't. And that's
give me 24 push-ups right now. Show me.
Yeah, I might be able to do that, but I wouldn't be jumping out of a helicopter and into choppy water. That's not something I would do. And here again, this kind of fits what you were saying about Tulsi. You have two very physically and mentally fit individuals. Jesse Ventura kind of skews that ticket to be an older ticket. That's my mom and dad's people. And I just the bravado scares me. And we talk a lot about audio because we do audio spaces and all these other kind of things. And I believe that the spoken word is something that doesn't get enough attention. That's one of the reasons why I'll pick on Aaron Rodgers again. He got, like I said, the side out of the mouth smirk, mumbling. Hey, Jimmy Kimmel, we look out. Jimmy Kimmel, that list comes out. See Jimmy Kimmel. Okay, I don't like it, and I don't like the bravado on the other side of the coin that Jesse Ventura brings. Not because of any personal reason. I just don't know that that's going to resonate with a lot of people. With Tulsi Gabbard, you have someone who has a nice even cadence, not too many highs, not too many lows, and she gets her point across very smoothly. So I'm not on board with Jesse for no personal reason. I just mean practically he's going to polarize as many people as he's going to bring on.
He'll scare some people. I mean, that's his whole act. And I do want to point out, folks, that it's an act. Professional wrestling is an act. The persona of Jesse Ventura in that sense was an act, but the real Jesse is who we got to know when he was running for governor and when he won. I would like to remind everyone, some of our younger viewers probably don't remember, but in 1998, Jesse Ventura shocked the world. He did the thing that everyone said couldn't be done. All the political experts, the pundits said it was impossible to run in that race, especially against two very popular Republican and Democratic candidates. He beat a 25-year incumbent, Hubert Humphrey III. Remember Skip Humphrey? Hubert Humphrey's son. And in Minnesota politics, the Humphreys pretty much ran that state for a quarter of a century, longer than that. And Jesse Ventura took him on. And, he was polling at about 10% until there was a nationally televised debate on C-SPAN for that governor's race. And Jesse outperformed everyone. Everyone thought he was some crazy wrestler. He was brusque. He was loud. He wasn't ready. And he came in and showed them all that he was actually quite sane, quite reasonable, pretty soft-spoken, actually, when you sit down and you talk to him. He's not going to yell at you in a conversation. I've had that pleasure of talking to Jesse. He's so damn likable, and he's got a big heart. And if you don't believe me, ask Terry, the woman he's been married to for 40 years. There aren't too many people in politics who can make a marriage work that long, especially if they're a jerk. And one of the reasons, someone in chat brought it up. Jesse has been approached many times. He's been interested in the presidency before. And in the past, he gave 2 reasons why he ultimately declined to run before. One, of course, was ballot access, because it's so damn hard, as Bobby Kennedy is now finding out as an independent, to get ballot access in all 50 states. But the other reason in more recent years was because his beloved wife, Terry, was having epileptic seizures. She has kind of a late onset of epilepsy in her life. And he was her caregiver. She needed him at home. But he tried medical cannabis, and it worked. From the very first dose, she took some drops under the tongue. I think that was over a decade ago. And his wife has not had a single seizure since. Yeah. So it seems that problem is now sorted out, I hope. This week, Jesse's son, Tyrell, who I just love, was on a podcast, and they asked him, is it true that you're on his short list? Is he talking to you? And Tyrell, bless his heart, he sounded so sad. He said, our phone ain't ringing. So I hope that Bobby will at least give Jesse a call if he's not the pick, and it sounds like he's not, to say, hey, thank you for your interest. Love you anyway. I hope that you'll stay with me on the campaign trail and, maybe find a job for him if he's interested in the administration. I think that, he needs a strong voice like Jesse Ventura, who's well-respected and well-respected on both sides of the aisle. Those who, you either love Jesse or you hate him. Most people just don't understand him. But those who love him really, really, truly love him. Those who know him love him. I've actually never heard anyone who knows Jesse say a bad word about him. And I think that,
what? He'd be perfect for Trump.
Ooh, don't tell him.
Oh, no, that would be Trump. Perfect. Talk about entertainment. No. Are you kidding me? Trump could insult him. Jesse could body slam him. It would be great. He could bust up the podiums on the debate stage. Yes. Trump could be up there debating. Jesse could run up on stage and just start smashing things and body slam it. It would be the best ever. That would be the perfect ticket.
Yes, they could tag team.
Yes, that's exactly
right. You got me, Rick. You got me there. Well, back in 2016, all the experts and the advisors around Trump told him to pick Mike Pence, right? Because he's so milquetoast and unoffensive. And they said, you need a guy who's going to smooth out the ticket and, who offsets Trump's big mouth. And it seemed like a good idea at the time. And it seemed to work out pretty well until January 6th.
And if Jesse had been there on J6, can you imagine? He would have that would have been the equalizer. You would have seen bodies flying left and right. It would have been.
You know what? Jesse actually said something about that. He said he wished he was there on January 6th because when he saw that guy with the Confederate flag, he got triggered. He was like, you're not bringing a Confederate flag in my Congress. Let me at him. He was going to body slam that guy, I swear. Jesse would have gone to jail that day, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And, when it comes to Trump and Tulsi, another reason that ticket just doesn't make sense to me is Trump never forgets a slight or a perceived slight. Yeah. And he liked Tulsi until the first impeachment. Back in 2020, she voted present, remember? I guarantee you he hasn't forgotten. He wanted her to vote no, of course. And the Democrats her party were pressuring her to vote yes. She took a principled stand in the middle and wouldn't vote either way. And then the second impeachment, and a lot of people forget this because a hell of a lot's happened in the last 4 years, but at the second impeachment, because of January 6th, remember when Trump was on his way out, they tried to impeach him again, and they did.
Yeah.
And all 222 Democrats voted yes. And a lot of people mistakenly think that Tulsi voted yes that time, but actually she didn't cast a vote because Tulsi's term of office ended on January 3rd.
Oh, okay.
So she had just left her congressional seat and actually didn't cast a vote on the second impeachment. Whew, dodged a bullet there. She didn't want to go through that whole process again. But I think that Trump would probably never forget how she voted the first time, and that she, loyalty is everything to Trump. If you're not loyal to him, out you go.
Yeah. Well, in this case, sometimes you have to look at the advantage of having her on the ticket, and it would give him, like I said, a little bump. I'm still skeptical on how far any good vice president can carry a president. I've used this analogy before. I think most of us are in tune. We're all of the age that we could probably name all the presidents since World War II. I'm sure we all three could. Vice presidents, that'd be a little tougher. And that's just how it is, because no matter how good you are at number two, you can always be instantly overruled by the opinion of number one.
That's right.
Yeah. So
that's right. And it is a nothing job. FDR's Vice President John Nance Garner famously said that the vice presidency isn't worth a bucket of warm spit. Actually, he used more colorful language than that. He said it's not worth a bucket of warm piss. Yeah. He's a Texan. He didn't mince words, but
sure.
And it's true. Now, in more recent years, the vice president has become more
Dick
powerful
Cheney.
in some administrations. Dick Cheney, anyone?
Yeah.
So, it all depends on the president and how much power and influence he's willing to let his vice president have. Arguably, the Bush administration was a co-presidency. Some people think Dick Cheney was actually running the country and Bush was just a front man. Many people said that about Ronald Reagan as well, with Bush's father, H.W. Bush, actually pulling the strings while Reagan took a nap for 8 years. But, I agree with you, Billy, that a vice president rarely makes or breaks a ticket. Yeah. Right? They can be an asset. They can be perhaps a liability. But I think that most people don't vote based on who the vice presidential running mate is. They vote for the top of the ticket. They're voting. And I've had many people tell me this week, I don't care who he picks. I'm voting for RFK. Right? Yeah. I trust his judgment. Whoever he picks is fine, except Aaron Rodgers. Ooh, that was the one name that made everybody blow their top this past week. Yeah. And that's why my ears hurt, because I've been getting an earful for the last several days. Everyone's like, what is he thinking? Has he gone mad? Oh, geez. And then the media got a hold of it, right? I mean, first of all, it looked like, I think it was on Thursday, Bobby was on Fox News, and they asked him about Rodgers, and it sounded like he was giving the game away. It sounded like he was pretty much confirming that it was Rodgers. It was very, very confusing. I couldn't figure it out. Maybe you can figure it out. I'll play you the clip and let you decide for yourself. Here we go.
Candidates, your previous guest, Robert Kennedy, did real well. So, it's all over the map.
He is scoring, 10, 12, 15% sometimes in the polls. It just seems to me, if you take all that together, he's right in a sense that it does show the degree of dissatisfaction that there is with the two main candidates.
And that's why there's been a lot of interest in his vice presidential pick, Aaron Rodgers in the mix and all of that. So you can see that there's something there for both sides to be nervous about.
And with that, let's bring in the man who could be the X factor in this year's presidential election, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Mr. Kennedy, thank you for joining us. We very much appreciate this. I want to kind of run through these polls because, one, you have not seen them yet, so we can put them up. This is Fox News polling in Arizona. This is a five-way race, and you can see you're running third at 10%. Moving on now to Pennsylvania, and you're also in third at 9%. And the Democratic Representative Jake Auchincloss said the following. Watch.
This election is going to be a near-run thing, going to come down to a few states, going to come down to a couple 100,000 voters. So any third-party candidate, especially with the last name like Kennedy, poses a significant challenge.
Yeah, Slate said the following: Trump and Biden should be terrified of a third-party candidate. You're clearly making an impact. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, my thoughts are the American public wants another choice. 80% of Americans say they do not want a rematch of 2020. People say that they're tired of being presented with a choice between the lesser of two evils. They want a candidate who they believe in, who gives them a hopeful vision for the future of this country, who is caring about ending the wars, ending the chronic disease epidemic, restoring the middle class, and making sure to protect our constitutional rights. So, I think we need another voice. We're a democracy. We shouldn't just be forced to choose between two bad choices.
Yeah, it's interesting because people are asking me all the time, what has to happen for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to make an impact, to be squarely in the running in November? You've got 7 months, 7+ months.
Yeah, I mean, I think our first challenge is to get on the ballot in all states, and we will do that. I think we'll be on the ballot in most states within probably 6 or 8 weeks, and we'll be on the ballot in all of the states that we can legally get on at that time. Some of the states open later, so you can't start gathering signatures, but as those states come up, we'll get on those ballots. Here in California, we started our own political party. People have to go to Kennedy24.com/California and register for that party. We need 75,000 registrants, and then I'm on the ballot here.
Yeah, you go forward and you talk about this, and there's been a lot of you started your own party. There's been talk of no labels. There's been talk of other things moving on there. Would you move if you had more support, if you had more money, if you had something that was going to steamroll you? Would you consider moving?
Moving
to another party, to another platform? Would you go to no labels? Would you Would you become the vice president of the United States if Donald Trump asked you to be his vice president?
No, I would not. My marriage would not survive that. But we're going to get on the ballot. So I'm not worried about getting on the ballot. And I'm now beating both President Trump and President Biden among Americans under 45 years old. I'm beating them in independent voters, which now is the biggest political party. This is the first time in American history an independents have outnumbered Republicans and Democrats. 43% of the electorate identifies themselves as independent, and only 27% are Democrats, 27% are Republicans. And I'm beating both President Trump and President Biden in that biggest cohort.
Yeah, you have said clearly that you will not run if President Trump, former President Trump, asked you to be his nominee, his vice presidential nominee. It's a no. Wouldn't hear your marriage. Yeah. Meantime, you have already made your choice on who your running mate will be, and we know that Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback for the New York Jets, formerly of the Green Bay Packers, is a prominent name in that. Why?
Well, he's one of the people that we've talked to. I really like Aaron because our appeal is to young people. We're trying to make sure that young people are participating in the political process, that they have hope for America. We want the people who have run up the $34 trillion debt, which they're dumping on that generation, are all older people. And we want somebody young who's going to look out for that generation. Mm-hmm. Aaron Rodgers is battle tested. He's stood up. He's been hammered by the press. Stood up for things we believed in. And I like that part of his character. He's a critical thinker, and I think we need that at the time, as the rise of AI. We need people who understand that you cannot always trust authority. Just because somebody's in charge, it doesn't mean that they're telling you the truth. And we want somebody who is going to critically examine. My father used to say, one of the duties of living as a citizen in a democracy is to maintain a constant posture of skepticism toward authority. And I think Aaron's shown that. He's also somebody who I think will help me get the country healthy again. He's 40 years old. He's focused on his own health. He's very aware of health issues, and that's one of the things that's one of the key parts of my agenda is to get the country healthy again.
It sounds to me like Aaron Rodgers is the choice, is your choice. Is he your vice presidential choice?
We're announcing my choice on the 26th of this month, so 2 weeks from today in Oakland. If you want to find out who my choice is, you need to come to that.
Might as well just let us know right here because you've got the time, the space, I think. Senator, thank you.
Trace, thanks for having me.
Appreciate your time so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.
I don't know. It seems to me that was like a trial balloon. I think that's what we've been looking at with these names being thrown out there. What do you think, Billy?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of the mind that, throwing out some names that are controversial was part of a plan to get people talking, to get people, oh my God, what's this? And you've heard more about the RFKjr campaign this past week with the vice presidential controversy than you have in the mainstream media since he basically started. So from that aspect, it's a good thing. I think that there's a kind of not raising expectations, but lowering expectations when you hear some of these crazy names. And nothing against Aaron Rodgers, but he's a controversial figure. I mean, I think we all can agree on that. And if you're the person was really afraid of Aaron Rodgers, then no matter who RFK mentions, it's going to sound good. Vlad the Impaler is going to be my vice president. Oh, thank God it's not Aaron Rodgers. And I'm really skeptical too about this bringing in the youth vote here again. Being from a football world, I'm from Canton, Ohio. The culture here is beer and football. That's pretty much it. All right. And I just don't associate Aaron Rodgers with somebody that a lot of young people connect with. He's not Patrick Mahomes. He's not Josh Allen. He's not that anymore. He's part of an old guard and a cranky old guard. He's a malcontent. Aaron Rodgers is been handed the world. And when you hear, if you go back and listen to him at any of those press conferences when he was in Green Bay, it was like a cross had been placed on his shoulder, standing there. And he's I've never seen him happy or enthusiastic about anything. So I just don't associate him with this young, vibrant image. That's just not something. And here again, it's nothing against him. He's an incredible quarterback. When in his prime, he most certainly was. He went almost an entire season. I don't remember exactly how far he went without throwing in an interception, which is incredibly difficult to do in the NFL because you have the best athletes in the world who are out there who are very agile, very fast, and to have that kind of skill, I appreciate that. I'm not taking anything away from Aaron Rodgers, but not everybody in the world belongs in presidential politics, and he's one of them. You agree with me on that?
Yeah, I do. I think that he would have been bad for the ticket. I think that the clip that we just saw of RFK Jr. from last night indicates that what we're discussing here is a moot point now.
Yeah.
So we're kind of flogging a bit of a dead horse, but I think that a lot of people are probably relieved tonight now that we are getting some indication that he's off the list. So
yeah.
Yeah.
But what isn't a moot point? And this is something I wanted to talk to both of you about because we're all media veterans here, right? We're old. Okay, I'm not going to lie. We're old. We've been there and done that several times before. And the last several years, and it's one of the reasons, Rick, that you and I went independent and left the corporate media, was we saw how they lie. It's no longer news. It's no longer credible. It's literally fake news, much of what we see out there. And this week is a perfect example of that with the Aaron Rodgers thing, right? Because once this list was leaked, and the list itself, I must clarify, is genuine. It was a real list. They didn't make up the list. And many of the people on the list confirmed that they had been approached by the campaign. For example, Senator Scott Brown of Massachusetts, by the time that the media caught up with him, he said, yes, I was approached, but I'm off the list. I took myself off the list. I'm not interested, but I wish Bobby well. Tricia Lindsay, who's a great civil rights attorney, currently running for state senate in New York. I love Tricia Lindsay. I kind of wish it would have been her, but she declined also. So the list got shorter really quick. And the main name that everybody in the media focused on, of course, was Aaron Rodgers. Because he's such a big star, because he's so controversial. And then it seems to me, guys, that they created a new controversy about Aaron Rodgers that probably tanked his chances. I mean, if Bobby had already decided that he wanted Rodgers, I think that story that CNN did this week about, Rodgers's alleged comments about the Sandy Hook shooting in 2012.
That wasn't fair.
No, and it was sourced. It had very dubious sourcing, right? It's one CNN reporter, Pamela Brown, and another anonymous source. Unless you've been living under a rock, you probably already know this, but just in case you don't, I'm going to play this clip from CNN, and God, it pains me to play anything from CNN. Ugh. But I have to show this one because it's actually hilarious. Because when they do this story, watch who they bring on for analysis and commentary. One of Biden's top strategists and one of Trump's top strategists. Take a look at this.
Independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. seems to be narrowing his search for a running mate. One of his prospects for vice president, New York Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers. Now, CNN is learning tonight that in private conversations, Rodgers has shared conspiracy theories, falsely claiming the 2012 Sandy Hook shooting was not real. Back in 2013, when CNN's Pamela Brown was covering the Kentucky Derby, she met Aaron Rodgers. And Brown says in conversations with him, Rodgers attacked the news media, claiming important stories were being covered up. He then brought up the Sandy Hook shooting and said the media was intentionally ignoring that the shooting was, he claimed, an inside job by the government. Now, when Brown asked for evidence, he shared conspiracy theories that had been disproven. Rodgers falsely claimed to Brown that there were men in black in the woods by the school and asked if she thought that was odd. CNN has also spoken to another source who would like to remain anonymous in order to avoid harassment. They had a similar encounter with Aaron Rodgers. This person said Rodgers claimed that, quote, Sandy Hook never happened. All those children never existed. They were all actors. Now, Rodgers declined CNN's request for comment. But here with me now, former senior advisor for the Biden 2020 campaign, Alencia Johnson. Also CNN political commentator and Republican strategist, Alice Stewart. I have to tell you, anytime there is a mention of Sandy Hook as a mommy, I remember my son had just been born, my oldest, and just how horrific it was and traumatizing for a new mother, for a human being, for the entire nation, let alone the families of those affected. Alice, when you hear this narrative that seems to keep popping up, particularly in political spaces, it's beyond.
Right. The Sandy Hook tragedy was gut-wrenching for all of us, and it's almost like it was yesterday. And I think of many presidential moments throughout our lifetime of president. One of the most compelling presidential moments was when President Obama was speaking about that in the briefing room, fighting back tears and choking up as he was talking about these children. It's a devastating tragedy, and we're still coming to terms with this. But to say this was some kind of a inside job and was not real is disgusting, and it shouldn't happen. And it's beyond a conspiracy theory. It is an outright lie, and it's an insult to the families involved. And I think for Aaron Rodgers or anyone to claim this didn't happen is disgusting and insulting. And so I think promoting that theory and that line of conspiracy, we shouldn't have any part of it.
I'm curious as to why he hasn't come out very vocally to say, no, that's not what I said, or this did not happen the way it's being relayed. I was expecting that to happen. Obviously, it's his right to either comment or not and on his own schedule, but it is stunning given his name is being thrown around right now as a potential VP pick.
Yeah, I mean, I have to think about who exactly is he trying to appeal to, right? Who is RFK trying to appeal to? There is
That's the question.
A faction of, I'll be honest, the Republican Party that believes in a lot of these conspiracy theories, that listens to the Joe Rogans of the world, who tout these types of conspiracies. And it's interesting because third-party candidates, as we know, aren't helpful to Democrats, but the path that RFK is going down with an Aaron Rodgers seems to appeal to a segment of the Republican Party base. And I'm also frustrated and troubled. I actually agree with you on the troubling comments from Aaron Rodgers.
That's the frustrating part. She's like, I'm frustrated and troubled. I actually agree with you.
Applause. I do agree with you. You know, Alice and I don't always agree on a lot of things, but I agree with you on how sick and vile it is for him to spout these conspiracy theories. I'm frustrated because at a time we know that gun violence is the leading killer of children in this country, right? When we should be having conversations around gun control, here's someone who is potentially a running mate, which that in itself I can't take too seriously, but is a potential running mate that is talking about these conspiracy theories and minimizing the impact that this is having on families every day in this country.
He's but one of the names mentioned. Another person is Jesse the Body Ventura, who, you know, I'm from Minnesota. He was the governor. And, you know, people can look down the nose for only so long until all of a sudden you're calling him governor, and you got people like Tulsi Gabbard on this list, excuse me, Senator Rand Paul, possibly Andrew Yang. Now, we don't know the extent of these conversations, if they're happening or who's taking it seriously as the recipient of a request. But I'll tell you about the polling here. He is consistently polling at 15% nationally. He is not going to be able to get a majority, obviously, win the presidency on that alone, but do you think he presents a threat for either candidate in this rematch, Biden or Trump?
He certainly does. And look, those numbers are consistent across the board. That's not a snapshot in time. That is a trend. And this is in the key battleground states. He's also polling very well. Look, if I were to be a betting woman, we'll come back at the end of the month, my money would be on someone more like Tulsi Gabbard, who is a lot less toxic and polarizing in many regards. Look, I attended one of RFK Jr.'s events. I did a magazine article on him. His crowd is across the board, black, white, young, old, Republican, Democrat. He is going to pull from both sides. And the issues that he focuses on, that he's talked about, that he's promoting, talks a lot about homelessness. He talks about restoring the middle class. He talks about ending chronic disease. He talks about unraveling the war machine and getting corporations out of government. Those are issues that resonate with a lot of people, and he is out there making his case day after day. And I'll tell you what, this Aaron Rodgers and Jesse Ventura stuff is crazy, but from RFK Jr.'s standpoint, this is earned media. And this is what you do if you're not getting news, you're not making headlines, you generate something that will get people talking. We're talking about this tonight. And my money is not on Aaron Rodgers, but it is on the fact that they're using this as an opportunity to generate earned media and get his name out there. And we'll wait to see who he names as his VP.
Let me give you the quick last word, Valencia.
You know, that extremism, though, that he continues to paint out here. I hear you that he has different folks at his rallies, but we are in a primary where folks are saying, well, actually, we're out of the primary, but we're in an election where folks are saying they want some new energy, and so they're listening to ideas. But as they continue to listen to RFK, they hear the extremism, right? They hear the extremism on issues that they care about, particularly around healthcare. Him being a huge anti-vaxxer, I think, is a concern for a lot of voters. There are going to be a lot of issues that he continues to talk about, and I think as voters continue to get to know him, I don't think he would hurt Democrats as much as people think he would. I think he actually could pull from the Republican Party.
Well, we shall see. Ladies, thank you both.
You know, Mark Twain once said that a lie can travel halfway around the world before the truth can get its shoes on.
That's very true.
Yeah. What a perfect example of that. I mean, I don't know if CNN was lying or not. They don't have a very good track record of telling the truth. They've been sued many times successfully or settled out of court on slandering people. And so my big question to you guys is, how much money is Aaron Rodgers going to win in his defamation case against CNN?
Well, I can tell you that, Rick, I didn't want to speak over you. Do you want to answer that first?
No, you go ahead.
Go for it.
There's a lot wrong with that, other than just the obvious. Number one, I don't know the context of the conversation. For example, if it was an interview, why wasn't it recorded? Right. He was having a private conversation. Why are you divulging that? I think that's something.
11 years later.
Yeah, I think that anytime a celebrity or a well-known business figure or a politician has a private conversation, they're always censoring themselves because I don't know if that person is going to go run somewhere and tell somebody about it, and they may not tell it correctly. They might tell it out of context. So there's a lot wrong with that. I don't like somebody's confidence in terms of a private conversation being violated. Number two, this is hearsay. I mean, if this was in court, this would be hearsay. This is what's supposedly what someone else said about someone else. This is a classic definition of hearsay, and it's what, 10, 11, 12 years old, or older than that. 2010, they said, 2011, something like that, or 13.
2013.
2013. Okay, so
a year
this is
after
2024.
the
This
shooting.
is 11 years. Okay, 11 years. That's hearsay. That's 11 years old, and they're talking about it, and they're talking about the tragedy of it, which it was, but they're evoking emotion about something that may not have ever happened or not happened the way they are describing it. It's a very unfair way to communicate.
Rick, I know you're not a fan of anonymous sources. Your thoughts on this?
I basically agree with that. I think that it's lazy, shoddy journalism.
What else would you expect from CNN?
Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly why they're so afraid of Aaron Rodgers if he's such a disaster waiting to happen. Why were they so aggressive? Now, I do know that the Democrats are organizing, ramping up like an organized arm of their campaign to go after third-party candidates.
Yep.
So maybe this is just a prelude of things to come. I think they're going to devote money to this. They're going to put forward probably the most organized anti-third-party negative campaign that we've ever seen in history, from what I'm understanding. So brace yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. If you thought what they did to Ralph Nader in 2000 was bad, look out, Kennedy, look out, Cornel West, look out, Jill Stein. They're coming for you, and they make no bones about it.
They must see these guys as real potential spoilers, and they must be thinking, their polling must be showing them that these candidates are pulling from the Democrat side more than the Trump side.
And it depends on which poll you're looking at. Like that CNN poll had Kennedy at 15%. I've seen an NBC News poll that had him at 34%. Now that is scary to the Republicans and the Democrats. Other polls have him in the mid-20s somewhere. But nonetheless, he is a force to be reckoned with. This is a three-man race. And, I think that the vice presidential choice is obviously very critical at a time like this. And for those of you who say that the vice presidential pick doesn't matter, Kennedy and Johnson.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's think back to 1960. Jack Kennedy probably would not have become president had Lyndon Johnson not delivered Texas. And, they say it's a nothing job, not worth a bucket of warm you-know-what. And it is a nothing job unless something happens to the president.
Yeah.
And then it's an everything job. Now, I trust Aaron Rodgers with a football, but not the nuclear football.
Exactly.
I just don't. I'm sorry. I mean, again, no experience whatsoever. And that was my problem with a lot of the names on the short list, to be completely honest with you. this week was I looked at that list. I like Mike Rowe a lot. And a lot of Kennedy's supporters were really advocating for Mike Rowe in that debate we had the other night. And I can see why. He's a very impressive man, but no political experience at all. We don't even know his positions on the big issues, right? What's his position on the Second Amendment? What's his position on the Gaza war, the Ukraine war, the economy? So many of these things that voters deeply care about. We need to know a lot about the vice presidential pick. And, speaking of CNN, I sent this to Rick this morning. Chris Cuomo, who used to host the primetime slot, he tweeted about me this morning.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you're on the map. I had Keith Olbermann after me a while back. So
he made me famous, guys. I don't know if that's a good thing, though. Is it good when Chris Cuomo calls your name? I'm not sure. Here's what he said. He said, I don't know this person. Well, it's okay. I don't know him either. I'm not sure if I want to. But he said, I agree with her assessment. It will not be the names in the air. But here he has to defend fake news. He says, it's not fake news. I guess he's a little sensitive about fake news.
Yeah, I wonder why.
I wonder why. He said, we know the campaign has reached out to each on the list, so not sure why the need to feed cynicism about this suggestion, other than to play to the hate parade of distrust of anything said by anyone but the one wanting your attention in that moment. And then he puts a little smiley face at the end of the tweet. That's because he had done an interview with Mike Rowe on his show. You know, he's now on News Nation. And I actually do like his new show on News Nation. I didn't want to like Chris. I really, I remember him from CNN, and I didn't want to like the guy. But damn it, when he sat down with Tucker Carlson this week, and those two, I don't know if you saw the interview, they had a great 2-hour conversation. These two former arch rivals on rival networks in the same time slot, battling it out for ratings, and they were always taking pot shots at each other. So it was really interesting to see them sit down and have a really good, honest conversation. But I tweeted back at Chris. I said, hey, Chris, is it any wonder Americans are skeptical of the media when we've been fed a steady diet of fake news for years? As you well know, your former employer, CNN, is one of the worst offenders. I wonder how much Aaron Rodgers will win in his defamation lawsuit. Ooh, damn.
Yeah. There was a lot wrong with.
I don't know if I made a friend of Chris or not there. Sorry?
Yeah. No, I was just going to say that there was a lot wrong with that CNN segment that you played earlier. And your comments are very correct. The other thing I would cite that was really inflammatory about that, to me anyway, about that CNN segment, was they cited the fact that he didn't come out and deny it as evidence that it might be true. That's and interestingly, you bring up LBJ because that was an LBJ trick. LBJ would come up with when he found out somebody wasn't going to vote his way, he would come up with outrageous stories against them. And a lot of, there's a legend in Washington that one of his advisors said, "But sir, he didn't do that." And LBJ said, I know he didn't, but I just want to hear the some bitch deny it. And that's
right. That's right.
That's the strategy.
Yeah.
They come up with all these outrageous claims, and then, well, the person doesn't run out and deny it. And then they say, well, there you go. He must have did it. So that's, and of course, if he comes out and denies it, then he's calling, a horrible thing to himself. So it's a very unfair thing to do.
It was interesting that Aaron Rodgers, he put out a tweet addressing the CNN story.
Oh, he did.
And he denied it in the sense that he's never held those beliefs. What I found interesting about that tweet, though, was that he didn't say, I'm going to sue you, because that's what I would have said. If they were lying about me, about a thing like Sandy Hook, I mean, we all saw the trial that dragged on for years with Alex Jones, and he's now got to pay like a $2 billion judgment and legal fees. And, Aaron Rodgers obviously wouldn't want to face that.
Yeah,
but I would have said, I'm going to sue you.
Yeah, it's a little different only because neither party can prove it either way. You don't have tape. It was 11 years ago. it's hearsay. But with Alex Jones, I mean, he was, he said it numerous times on the air. Those families were harassed because of him. Which, can you imagine the emotional toll that would have taken on you to have lost a child in that way and then be harassed as a liar and a fake on top of it? So, I mean, that was a completely different situation. So I don't know what kind of a suit he would have. I'm not a libel attorney, but that's a case that's a little harder to prove one way or the other.
It is. And I must say that my respect for Aaron Rodgers really went up this week, actually, in light of the reporting, if indeed he was running interference for Kennedy. If he wasn't Kennedy's pick and they both knew it, he was willing to take the fire.
Yeah.
And Aaron Rodgers' reputation took a terrible hit because of this story. If he was willing to make that sacrifice to help Bobby, I guess it helped. I don't know if it helped or not.
Well, that's the one part of what they said that I would say might be true. I mean, this is part of a firestorm that a lot of times can, help your candidate because he or she gets talked about a lot more than what they would have otherwise. And, RFKjr was part of the political landscape, both on legacy media and on digital media this past week, more than he's been since he started the election. And it's because of this vice presidential nonsense. And I said earlier to Rick, I don't know if you heard me or not. I don't know. This might have been something that he didn't bring on upon himself. This might not have been something he wanted to jump in the ring for. And he took a lot of stuff that he might not have even wanted to. So that from that part of it, I'm here again. I'm speculating. I don't know, but I totally agree with that.
Well,
Aaron's the sacrificial lamb, it seems. Sorry, Rick, go ahead.
If any of these guys do end up on a ticket, that's nothing compared to what they're going to get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting? A lot of people didn't even know that Bobby Kennedy was running for president until this week when they heard about the Aaron Rodgers story. Seriously. So that's how much press he got out of the deal. And who it's going to be ultimately, who the heck knows at this point. Man, I've been all over, up and down and all around, and everybody in this campaign has had a tough week. We've had reporters reaching out to us for comment, and we're like, we don't know. And if we did know, we sure as hell wouldn't tell you.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think about Senator Rand Paul? Doug Stafford is actually advising our campaign. He works with us. Any thoughts?
Rick?
I can't
Billy?
see it happening. I think he's going to stay with his party and stay within that sphere. I don't think he's going to jump over.
Yeah, I've heard he's denied it, that he won't do it. That's my understanding, is that he's already said he won't. And him and a few others, DeSantis, would have been pretty solid political picks. These are solid political statespeople, but it just doesn't seem like those are going to happen.
I wanted to say something about Chris Cuomo. That guy is in the process of trying to reinvent himself. I'll tell you, when I was watching him during the pandemic, my God, the things he said that just made my head explode.
Yeah.
And then to see him backpedaling on some of that stuff now, I'm having a really hard time finding forgiveness.
Yeah.
You're not buying it, huh?
Really hard time, but giving him any credibility at this point. Sorry.
So the Tucker interview didn't sway you?
No, I mean, is there some of this going around? Like he's just trying to reinvent his career, rejected by the establishment that he was so willing to endorse and, prop up, promote. And now he's, an outcast, and he's trying to find a new home with the people that he was at war with before. And I mean, I can't even remember all the terrible things that he said. not to mention the hypocritical things that he did. And when he was supposed to be in quarantine and he was caught out in public, and then he was
having an argument with a lady.
Yes. Yeah. And now he's, well, Tucker, I agree. We just went a little too far. Do you think?
You think?
Do you think? And he doesn't strike me as being unintelligent, but the first thing that pops into my head when I see those biceps is meathead.
Oh boy. Well, I have mixed feelings about Chris because he's family to the Kennedys. Bobby Kennedy's, this is complex. Bobby Kennedy's sister, Carrie, was for a long time married to Chris Cuomo's brother, former New York governor, Andrew Cuomo, right? They had a big family together, were a happy couple until they weren't. And so Bobby Kennedy and Chris Cuomo have known each other a long time. The Kennedys and the Cuomos go together like peanut butter and jelly. And during the pandemic, I'll share this story. It's kind of interesting. It's one of the reasons that I cannot hate Chris Cuomo and why I can kind of forgive what he did, as horrible as it was, is, I was very sick. As you know, I've told my story. I got that first blast of COVID that came straight out of Wuhan, that really strong first wave that was killing perfectly healthy people. It put me in the hospital with a killer pneumonia. My lungs were full of fluid. I probably should have died. I'm very lucky to be here. And Chris Cuomo got the same wave of COVID at almost the same time that I did. And I have these memories of being in the hospital, like, on my deathbed. And in the hospital, they make you watch CNN. I don't know why. It's like punishment. It's like they're trying to kill you. Here, watch CNN while you're laying there dying. And so I have these vivid memories. So much of that time is still foggy because I was running a temperature, very high temperature, and COVID affects the brain, and I wasn't in my right mind. But I remember watching Cuomo's show, and something that I did respect about Chris, maybe he did it for narcissistic reasons, I don't know. But, he did his show while he was quite sick with COVID. I don't know if people remember. He was down in his basement, and he continued doing his nightly show while he had this high fever and shortness of breath, and he was clearly suffering. I mean, he really was quite sick, even though he's a super healthy guy. And that's my point about that. Today we think of COVID as a mild cold. For most healthy people, it doesn't really affect you like that.
Yeah.
But it was different. That first wave that came out of Wuhan was serious business, folks. I was a healthy person. Chris and I are exactly the same age. And we were both healthy people until COVID came along. And unfortunately, Chris and I have something in common. We both have long COVID to this day. Okay. And it's still affects my life. I'm partially disabled because of it. I'm not the person I used to be, and there's no help. There is no cure. There's no treatment that's been shown to work. And something I respect about Chris is he has become a real advocate for long COVID sufferers. He actually has a Substack for people out there. If you have long COVID, I would suggest taking a look. He always talks about it on his show. He does not let this subject go away because people are over the pandemic. They want to forget about it. They don't feel that COVID's a risk anymore. No one wears a mask. No one social distances. You only have to quarantine. I don't even think you have to quarantine anymore. It was down to 3 days, but I think now they're just telling you to go about your life if you have COVID and don't worry about it. But that, for those of us who have long COVID, and by the way, I'm unvaccinated. People always say you get it from the vax. Nope. You can get it from the virus itself. And I was diagnosed in May of 2020 before the vaccines were even available. They didn't become available until January of 2021. So I never took the vax. And Chris did, of course. I think he's had all of his boosters. And pleased his corporate sponsors at CNN by helping them sell that crap. And if you took the vaccine and you're happy with it, good for you. But a lot of people are vaccine injured, and their symptoms, here's the really interesting part, match exactly the same symptoms that unvaccinated COVID long haulers have. We have the myocarditis, right? The heart inflammation. We have the brain inflammation, the lung inflammation, the circulatory issues. It's strange. And doctors acknowledge that there is commonality in the symptom set, but nobody can tell us why. Nobody seems to know why. Nobody has any answers. It's a novel virus, a new vaccine. Nobody knows what the heck it'll actually do to you. But I can tell you, and Chris Cuomo can tell you, it can fuck you up.
Yeah.
It can really fuck you up. So on that, I can't be all that mad at Chris Cuomo. There are a lot of reasons why. I think in his heart, he's a good man. And nobody was more surprised than me.
Stop it. Stop.
Yeah. Well,
I know. I'm sorry about that.
He's not the worst that CNN had. That Jake Tapper is somebody that gets on my nerves. That guy that was on that clip there that you had on the screen, and he can get on my nerves.
He gets on my last nerve. And Don Lemon, former CNN employee, Don Lemon, who's now a former ex-employee too.
That was a fiasco.
Apparently Elon canned him, Elon signed him up to do a show exclusively on X. I think that lasted for a week. And then he interviewed Elon Musk. Did you guys see that?
I saw parts of it, yeah.
I didn't see that, no. I knew
about
it. It was a bad interview all the way around. And
if you can find that clip, Rick, it's great.
Yeah.
See if you can find that.
And then when it went south, he went running back to CNN to say how terrible Elon Musk was. The people that fired him originally for doing that kind of stuff.
And there was something like, his contract, he was asking for a Tesla super truck and all these like these ridiculous contract demands. And they did this one interview that went really bad. And I hope Rick can find the clip. But I could tell 10 seconds into that interview, I was like, Elon's going to fire your ass. He's not. He's going to fire your ass. And sure enough, he got fired.
Yeah.
Like Joe Biden said, well, son of a bitch, he got fired.
I don't know what happened to CNN because there was a time when they were the good guys. You had Fox that was right. You had MSNBC that were out the window on the left. And CNN was kind of like the boring people, but they basically told you how things were going, And that all changed in 2016. I mean, they just went nuts. Yeah. They decided we got to pick a side. And, a lot of that, I'll say this, is the blame of the viewer. And I get a lot of flack for saying this. But we as the viewing audience have caused a lot of this. I'll let you go to your clip.
This is good. Take a look at this.
Do you believe that X and you have some responsibility to moderate hate speech on the platform? That you wouldn't have to answer these questions from reporters about the Great Replacement Theory as it relates to Democrats?
I don't have to answer these questions.
The Great Replacement Theory as it relates to Jewish people. Do you think that?
I don't have to answer questions from reporters. Don, the only reason I'm doing this interview is because you're on the X platform and you asked for it. Otherwise, I would not do this interview.
So you don't think? Do you think that you wouldn't get in trouble or you wouldn't be criticized for these things?
I'm criticized constantly. I could care less.
Illuminating in so many ways. All right, I have two things I want to ask you about that, Don. First, the Great Replacement Theory. Right. As you bring it up, he has tweeted a tweet he shared. Increasing illegals boost Dem voting power, causing them to recruit more. If Dems win President, House, and Senate, they'll grant citizenship to all illegals, and America will become a permanent one-party deep socialist state. Right? He has gone there directly. How much does he stand by these ideas?
Well, he didn't quite seem to understand that he did. Originally, he did that with Jewish people, sort of a Great Replacement Theory thing that he did with Jewish people, and he got in trouble and he had to go to Auschwitz and answer questions and apologize and go with Ben Shapiro. But he doesn't understand that sort of rhetoric that he talks about, the Great Replacement Theory and a migrant invasion, that's what radicalized shooters use in their manifestos, those exact words. The people who go and shoot up people, whether they be Latino people who live in Texas or Black people who are in a supermarket in Buffalo, or Jewish people who are worshiping, those people use the same rhetoric, that they are tropes, that they're either racist for Latinos or Black people or for Jewish people. And I wanted to know if he felt any responsibility as someone who has one of the largest social media and information platforms in the world.
250 million people.
A 250 million people. I think it's 455 or 500 million users a week. And it doesn't seem that he feels that he has any responsibility with that, because he seemed really averse to facts. That facts did not matter to him. It didn't matter that he retweeted things that were offensive to people. And this the whole idea of what I was asking him about, was it offensive? And did he feel that his platform should have better moderation?
Oops.
I love it. Now he's back on CNN. Like, can I have my old job back?
Yeah. Yeah.
Love it. Juicy. It's so juicy. Is it just me, or is Don Lemon the most annoying man on earth?
He's annoying.
You could tell he was just getting under Elon's skin there.
Yeah, Elon said, I agreed to do your interview because you're on X, and I agreed to do the interview. Okay, Elon, I'm on X. I have a premium account. Why don't you come do an interview for me?
There you go. You'd be nicer to him than Don was.
I don't know.
Hello to all of our viewers watching live on X, by the way.
Yes.
Man, you could see the Jewish space lasers coming right out of Elon's eyes and penetrating Don Lemon. Oh my goodness! You see the anger.
Yeah.
Oh
He was not happy.
I bet he walked right out of that interview and went to Linda and said, "Fire that son of a bitch."
Yeah.
Right now.
and then the Don Lemon supporters were crying that, well, Elon says all this stuff about free speech, but he canceled Don Lemon. He didn't cancel Don Lemon. Don Lemon can still post on X. Don Lemon can still do all those things. He just doesn't have a special relationship as a production company would, like one of us would have with a radio station or something like that. That don't mean we've been censored.
So that means no $5 million Cybertruck for you, huh?
No, I guess not.
Damn.
Well, I hadn't seen that interview. That was the first clip I'd seen of that. I'd heard about it, but now I want to watch the whole thing. That was very entertaining.
Don't you?
Yeah.
Oh, you should. It's delicious. But couldn't you tell Rick in the first 10 seconds, you're fired. You are so fired. He hates you.
Oh my. Oh.
Yeah.
I needed a laugh after this week. Since I can't have a drink, I needed a laugh. Good Lord.
Well, I'll pose a question to you two.
So, yeah.
Okay, I'll preface this just real quick. I'll give you a little background here on where I'm going with this. I've said before, and I've gotten criticized for it, that the audience has a lot to do with the blame that's going on with how media has become the way that it is. You can trace this. We've talked about JFK and his presidency and how different that was. Prior to that, during the 1950s in particular, real journalism was supposedly on print and on the radio. And the government had mandated that as part of their FCC broadcast requirements, that major networks were supposed to do news as a public service. This was something that they did very begrudgingly, because news did not make money. They wanted to get I Love Lucy or whatever, the Milton Berle show, on the air as quickly as possible because that sold Coca-Cola or whatever. And they did it very begrudgingly. They did not like having to do the news. In 1963, on November 22nd, America was glued to their TVs for 3 days, 24 hours a day. And somewhere, somebody said, you know what? People are glued to this TV watching real events. And we don't have to pay actors. We don't have to pay writers. We just point the camera that way. And during the 1960s, I think there was a certain decorum that broadcasters had, even with all that went on with the civil rights movement, the riots, Vietnam. There was a certain decorum. I think Watergate brought in the bloviating. What did the president know? How much did he know? And when did he know it? Blah, 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 blah. And they started to realize that they were affecting public opinion. The people looked at them as authorities. This really,
you could say that CBS News got Nixon impeached if you look at their coverage of Watergate.
Yeah. And this kind of carried into what became cable news in the 1980s and 90s. Everybody's reporting the same news. So how do you bring the audience in? Well, you make it cater to what they believe. So all of a sudden now you had people representing a certain fact set of each given event that catered to their audience. And after 2000, of course, this was manifested by social media. So you have an audience now that won't listen to boring news. And here's what I mean. Could you, in this day and age, have a news anchor with a pocket protector and dark rimmed glasses sitting there in front of the TV, reading a bunch of benign facts and let the audience determine what their opinion was? Could that person be successful today?
Boy, we had that conversation a lot on this program, Rick. Yeah, I mean, if Huntley and Brinkley were around today, they wouldn't be the top-rated show on TV. They'd probably be the bottom-rated show on TV. And David Brinkley is my hero. David Brinkley's the whole reason that I wanted to do news. We did a whole show about that here on Strange Bedfellows. I want to let Rick take that question about, is it the audience? Is it their fault? Are we just serving what they want to hear?
I wrestle with that every single day, and I resist the descent into entertainment, which is further descended into some sort of weird psyop almost, where you are manipulating people and buying into and perpetuating tropes or narratives simply to get clicks when I know that it's actually damaging people and their mental health.
Yes.
It's destructive. It's we are in the darkest of times. We can't afford to do this. It's immoral. I'm trying to not engage in it at all. As a result, I'm losing viewers. I get attacked by telling actual truth and refusing to participate in fantasy. I don't have a solution to this. This is very, very dangerous, because what we're seeing is the creation of absolute alternative universes, alternative realities,
yes,
in cyberspace that people think it's like real, and they're living in the Matrix. When they think they're awake, in reality, their minds are just trapped in a digital world that only semi-exists, where they move in and out of it into the real world and back in. I'm haunted by this every single day, and I am trying to protect my viewers from it, pull them back out of these rabbit holes, and I don't know honestly what to do. I'm in a state of despair over it. And maybe you guys can help me, because I'm a little bit lost on this.
Yeah.
Well, I'll try to respond to that. It troubles me, the grift that's going on in the independent media, because everyone's given up on mainstream media. That much is clear, and for good reason. Like we were just talking about Chris Cuomo and Don Lemon and all the fake news. Nobody trusts them anymore, and that's fine. But when they go to the independent media, they automatically trust someone just because they're independent, right? Even though they're consuming clickbait and fake news. For example, since we were talking about RFKjr, Kim Iverson's show yesterday had a total clickbait title. Will Arnold Schwarzenegger be Kennedy's VP? And they had Del Bigtree on, right, who's the communications director for the Kennedy 24 campaign. And nowhere in that entire interview was Arnold's name even mentioned. But they put him in the headline and in the photograph to get you to click on it. Okay. I'm not blaming Dell for that. I blame Kim Iverson's staff for that. But the problem with that is the audience loves that shit. And they support that with their donations. If you're feeding their fantasies, if you're telling them what they want to hear, they open their wallet and they're like, take my money. Here's a super chat. Here's a super chat. I'll send you $200. I'll send you, $50 a month. Meanwhile, over here at Maverick News, Rick and I make a real effort to give you carefully vetted news before we go on the air. We don't feed fantasies. We debunk bullshit. That's what this whole show tonight is about, is debunking fake news. And shame on these broadcasters who try to pose as journalists, even though they haven't got a shred of training. A lot of them are stand-up comedians or, did something else before they found the niche that would make them money. And it's all about money, in my opinion. Rick and I have talked about this at length on the air and off the air. What can we do? What's the responsible thing to do? And, so that we can sleep at night, at least get a couple hours of sleep, so that we can look ourselves in the mirror, so that when we lay on our deathbeds and say, what did we do for this world? What did we contribute? Mm-hmm. I don't want to have it on my conscience when I die that I lied to people. And it's why I left the corporate media in the first place, guys. And I think that's true for Rick as well. We could not, in good conscience, tell a lie. We are both old school journalists. We've been at this for more than 35 years in my case. Rick was at CTV for at least 25 years. Wow. And so we come from an era that was very different before the internet, when we had most people got their news from newspapers, radio, and television. And we were trained to be objective. We were trained to be thorough and fair and truthful. And I mentioned David Brinkley earlier. David Brinkley once said, and it's the best advice that I could give any journalist out there. You as a journalist have one job. Tell us what happened today. Just tell people what happened today. That's why they tune in. They want the news. And you may not have all the answers. You're not expected to. Tell them what happened today as best you can ascertain, given the verifiable facts. And those can change as a story evolves, as more information becomes available. But responsible journalism is the answer. It's the only answer that I know. It's the only thing I know how to do. It's what I did all my life. And I'm not here to grift. I think I've got 2 donors who send me $5 a month. So I don't care about the money. I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing this for the love of the craft of journalism. And I know that that's why Rick gives 3 hours of his night every night on the air, 7 days a week, holidays too, time away from his family. And not to mention the hours and hours of research and production that goes into Maverick News before he even opens the mic and goes live. It's a lot of work, folks.
Yep.
And I guess this would be a good time to say, please donate. Mm-hmm. Put that donation link down there, Mr. Rick, and remind people that if you cherish and value real journalism, honest journalism, done by honest journalists, people like us who are kind of old and long in the tooth, that used to matter. Think back when we were kids, when we were growing up in the 70s and 80s, the anchor on the evening news was always an older guy.
Yeah.
Walter Cronkite, David Brinkley, Chet Huntley, the greats, Frank Reynolds. I could go on. They always picked the senior newsman to sit at the desk, and there was a reason for that. They weren't trying to appeal to the kids, They weren't trying to go viral with something. That was not how it was done. It was about authoritative news delivery. You knew that you could trust Walter Cronkite, Uncle Walter. And even they got the story wrong sometimes. That's part of journalism. But when you do screw up, you need to immediately issue a correction.
Yeah.
As soon as you know you're wrong. But so many of these fake news stories, like what we just saw from CNN this week with Aaron Rodgers, once they let it get legs, they wanted it to go viral. Even if it's total bullshit, look how many people watched it, though.
Absolutely.
Right? That's probably the best ratings that CNN has had in a long time.
Sure.
Anyway, that's my rant.
Yeah. And put your link up there, Lori, for people who want to support your show specifically and your channel.
You can just go to strangebedfellowspodcast.com. Thank you, Rick.
Okay.
It's very kind of you. Send me $1. I need $1. dollar bill, y'all.
While we're at it, Billy, how do people find your work and your channels?
Sure. If you're a podcast fan, and I certainly hope that you are, you can search for the Billy Dees podcast on any platform. I'm on all the major ones, and most of the little ones too, as far as I know. There's some that I haven't heard of. I learn about new ones all the time. But the Billy Dees podcast is available on all the major podcasting networks. And you can find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Billy Dees, and there's links in my Twitter bio as well. And you can find me on most social media. I don't maintain them all. There's just too many. But if you just search Billy Dees or the Billy Dees podcast on most social media, I come up as well. So pretty easy to find. Thank you for asking.
You know, I love your show, Billy. You've made a fan out of me. And you had me on as a guest this week. We had a lovely conversation, and it was only about 40 minutes or so, and it just seemed like we were just scratching the surface. And that's why I wanted to have you on Strange Bedfellows tonight, so that we could have 2 hours to really take a deep dive, get to know each other, let our audience get to know you. And I couldn't think of anyone better to have a mature discussion about fake news and social media and the mainstream media, and how a story, something as simple as who RFKjr might choose as a running mate, could go so wrong.
Yeah.
Or some might argue that it went right. It keeps your name in the papers. Maybe that's a good thing. I personally think it did more damage to the campaign than it did any good, but what do I know? I've only been in news for 35 years. Don't listen to me.
Well, you're both seasoned pros. I was a little laid back because obviously you don't have a rapport when you're with somebody for the first time. So I kind of laid back a little bit, but I absolutely loved the experience. It was a pleasure being on with two seasoned vets like you. And I hope I didn't make a fool out of myself, but I don't think I did. I think I did okay.
No, you were great, man. You're a total pro, very smooth.
Okay.
And just by the way, I love your voice.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's good to hear.
I wish I didn't have the high squeaky voice. I wish I was smooth like you.
No, you're all right. Your voice is fine. Yeah.
I'm being honest. Actually, I hate my voice.
No, get out. Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You got a great voice.
Yeah, most people. Yeah, I think your voice is very identifiable, and that's.
There you go. You can't miss it.
You can't miss my voice.
Well, it's kind of a misnomer. I'm kind of from the voiceover world, and it's kind of a misnomer that you have to have a big low bottom voice. That's actually not true. Most of the really successful voiceover people are really rich in the mid range, like Morgan Freeman, not real bassy. Tim Allen, all those people, they have a real rich mid-tone, and audiophiles out there will tell you that's where music is in your speakers, not low or high, but it's right in that mid-range. That's where music resides, especially if you like jazz and classical music and all that. So you're fine. You have a great voice.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
Rick has that lovely soft-spoken delivery. It's almost like a whisper. Sometimes I have to go, Rick, speak up. What did you say? Stop whispering, damn it.
My new show is going to be Pillow Talk, midnights on the Maverick channel.
Sexy. Oh, that's sexy.
Lori's got the smooth, velvety voice, too. We got to mention her. I mean,
yeah.
I also come from that world of voiceovers, commercial production and stuff like that, and radio. Radio was always my first love. I honestly hate being on camera. TV was not my thing. Rick's the TV guy. He had to kind of drag me into this kicking and screaming because I'm more comfortable in a podcast format where it's just audio only. But Rick's teaching me the ropes. He's showing me how to do this TV thing, this on camera YouTube podcasting thing.
Well, I don't know if you should take my advice, because Billy's got me thinking, and I'm going to change my look. I've got new glasses coming, and I'm going to get myself a pocket protector.
Oh my goodness!
And I should have worn it.
And it's all about a good microphone too. I mean, I think Rick told me he uses like a El Cheapo microphone, but when you're blessed with a great voice like Rick, you don't need a super sweet mic like you and I use. But for audio folks like Billy and I, it's all about that microphone. Just kind of takes whatever natural talent you have and sweetens it up, makes you sound so good. But when you hear me on Twitter Spaces, then you hear what I really sound like, and I sound just like everybody else. The microphone does the magic.
Yeah, you sound pretty great on Twitter Spaces too.
Yeah,
that's very kind. That's very kind. I have enjoyed this so much. I always hate to bring these conversations to an end. One of the things I love about Strange Bedfellows is, I have to be so professional during the week. And I love that we do this on Saturday nights when I can let my messy hair down and just be myself and cuss a little. I would say drink a little, but I don't drink. I'm just having coffee. And shoot the shit with you guys and have an honest to God conversation, which is what podcasts are supposed to be all about. This is not a news program like Maverick is. This is a talk show. It's conversation. And that's what a good podcast ought to be. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed it. Thank you, everyone who tuned in. Thank you for supporting this show. And thank you for supporting Mr. Kennedy. If we have some Kennedy supporters out there, I got to get a plug in for my guy. His big announcement of the vice president is coming up March 26th in Oakland, California. We will most likely be covering that for you live here on the Maverick News Network, if we can make that happen. Set up a live stream for you.
Oh, yeah.
Think so?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
100%.
I mean, shit, we've covered this campaign from day one. We had Bobby's announcement. Can you believe it's been almost a year? It'll be a year next month, April 19th. We had that live. Wow, a year goes by fast, and what a year it's been, man. And what a 7 months we have ahead until November the 5th, Election Day. But who knows what's going to happen with the VP. I trust that Kennedy will make the right choice. But I'll tell you this, folks, since we're begging for money here, this is not a grift. Our campaign still has to get on the ballot in about 46 more states, I think. And ballot access initiatives are extremely expensive. We have a lot of volunteers out there collecting signatures, but you also often have to hire people to go get these because you've got a short window of time. In some states like Texas, you have less than 2 months to collect over 100,000 signatures. And so you have to pay signature gatherers, and the whole thing's really expensive. Plus, the Republicans and the Democrats are going to have big, high-priced lawyers challenging our ballot access in these states, and we're going to have legal battles to fight as well. So this would be a good time to remind you, if you haven't already, donate a few bucks to Mr. Kennedy's campaign. We really do need the help right now. And on top of that, once he picks a VP and he brings him in, because there's no Secret Service protection, we have to pick up the cost of not only protecting Bobby and his family, but it'll also be our responsibility to protect the vice presidential running mate and their family. So our security costs that are about $1 million a month are about to double. Okay. So if there was ever a time to donate, it's now. Please go to Kennedy24.com and pitch in a few bucks. No one's going to sneeze at a $5 donation. We thank you. We thank you so much for that. And thank you, Billy Dees, once again for sharing your wisdom with us. Thank you, Rick Walker, for being my friend this evening and for all you do. And thank you, everyone, for watching Strange Bedfellows. Until next Saturday night at 9 o'clock. Peace. Good night, everybody.
In a universe full of ideas, we draw lightness from the dark to a place where opposites attract. Right meets left, positive touches negative, sparking an explosion of truth. Because politics makes strange bedfellows.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.